I really want you to understand that there's a conundrum here. We know this is a serious problem with generative AI. The rising generation has primarily only had positive experiences with new technology, right? So whether it's their iPad when they're a kid, or Roblox as a preteen, or Spotify as a teenager, whatever it is, technology is good. That equation really is fixed in our young generation's mind. Technology equals better living, right? And so for most of our students, they're not going to be able to see that genAI is a different kind of technology. They're going to think it's just the same as Roblox, or it's just the same as what they were doing on the streaming or whatever. It's just technology, Mom. It's the same. But that's not actually true. Intelligent systems work very differently than any other type of technology that humans have had available to them. And the conundrum is, with genAI, we get a new equation. There are hidden costs to using genAI, particularly using it while learning, that most students are not educated enough to interrogate. With genAI, because it's so slick and fast and easy to use, you put in a thing and 6 seconds later you got a good thing. Students, there's this allure to using it improperly in the classroom, and if they practice it in the classroom, where will they take it? To the workplace. And if they use it improperly in the workplace, you know how fast that's going to lead to a problem? It's going to lead to a problem. So although we wish that it was puppies and rainbows, it really has a downside. Improper use has real consequence. We know from MIT that there's this concept called cognitive debt or cognitive atrophy, that when used for what's called delegated intelligence, improper use of genAI actually reduces learning and brain function. So you can go read this study if you haven't already. Made a big splash when it was published. And the reality is, delegated intelligence is a super important concept for any user to understand. Now, this is true for yourselves as users. It's also true for students as users. They need to understand that when you're using an intelligent system, the most important thing to keep in mind is that there are two intelligences involved. Your intelligence and the system of intelligence. And that partnership, how you run that partnership, affects the outcomes that you get. If you forget, and many students do, and many users do, that you are also intelligent, because it's so fast and quick and cool, you're going to start to have improper use. If you forget that you are also intelligent, you are going to start to use GPT improperly. And by the way, I say GPT as a shorthand. Anytime I say GPT, I'm not referring exclusively to the product called ChatGPT by OpenAI. When I say GPT, I'm talking about all generative pre-trained transformers, whether it's Copilot or Gemini or Claude or anything. So when I say GPT, I mean all of it. Any GenAI tool, just a shorthand, I'm going to say GPT, okay? So the point is delegated intelligence means I'm intelligent, it's intelligent, but I'm going to make it do the work. And that kind of relationship with a GPT is going to lead to cognitive atrophy, where your brain actually, you can scan someone's brain, a user of GPT versus a person who's not using it. You can see the effects of use of GPT, just like what we see in the gym, right? Why work hard when you could work smarter? That's what I always say, and he's sipping his lemonade. Now, bro, do you even lift? Look at his skinny legs. Right? This is a problem. AI is doing all that work. What kind of gains are you going to produce letting AI do all your work? The funny thing is we can see this in a gym, how silly it would be to ask a machine or a robot to do the lifting for you. What's the point? Students can't see that in the university, and I'll tell you the difference between a gym and a university. You can go to a gym and have a machine do the work for 4 years and come out skinny legs, but the gym doesn't give you a certificate that says that you're swole. It doesn't give you a hashtag look at those gains diploma, right? But a university will. And students they understand that intuitively. Yeah, I know I'm supposed to be here working hard, but if I can pass it by, I will get the same diploma. And what they probably don't realize is that it's going to catch up with them, right? We have this phrase in society, cheaters never prosper. It would probably be better said, if you cheat, you can do it for a while, but eventually you get caught and the consequences won't be bearable, right? That's what we mean when we say cheaters never prosper, is it'll catch up with you. You practice for 4 years being a cheat at your academic studies, you're going to get to the workplace, and you're going to be found out so fast you can't believe it, right? And so we need our students not to be skinny legs, but it's not their legs, it's their brain. And the academy is meant to be rigorous, and you can explain that to students. I have workshops that I've run that students really respond well to. You can explain that the work is supposed to be hard. The syllabus is supposed to kick you in the teeth, and that's for your benefit. And they'll go, I didn't, that's right. Oh, okay, so I should want to do the hard work. Yeah, you should want to do the hard work. So the conundrum is improper use of tech leads to worse living. Now, this is not a new problem. This is an old problem. You have had this problem in your work life. The study of this problem is called ergonomics. And if you ever got carpal tunnel from using the mouse too long and your wrist got hurt, that's ergonomics, right? The study of how use of a tool between a human and a tool interface, use of a tool improperly over an extended period of time leads to a problem. For me, it's usually the chair, right? You probably are, some of you are sitting there right now going, oh, this stupid chair, right? And we know that if a chair is designed in an improper way, the interface between the tool, in this case the chair, and your body creates a problem. And we call it a lumbar pain. You can redesign the chair to be what's called ergonomic. And when you get an ergonomic desk chair, suddenly the back pain goes away. And that's really an advantage, is for that back pain to go away because you've built a better interface between the tool and the user. And this is really important to understand. Ergonomics exists for all tools, so hammers can be ergonomic or not, right? The curve of the handle should match the curve of your hand, and that creates a better swing and less bent nails. Staple gun can be ergonomic, right? Usually it requires a glove, actually. Any kind of squeezing action where a glove's not involved, you probably don't have a good ergonomic setting. A mouse pad can be ergonomic. And the study of ergonomics in the physical realm is easy for most people to understand. You go, obviously, you don't want to sit in a stupid chair all day. You want to sit in a nice, smooth, lumbar supporting chair that's built for your body. This is great. Well, it turns out that ergonomic design in the physical space is, most people relate to it, but it also exists in the cognitive space. So this negative effect that tools can have on the user, whether it's our children or teenagers or professionals themselves, that doesn't have to exist. And the way that you get around it is what's called cognitive ergonomics. And the cognitive ergonomics are meant to create an interface of clarity between the user and the cognitive tool. So most softwares are not so sophisticated that they create ergonomic problems. But starting in 2016, I started working with predictive models in academic advising. So I don't know if any of you have these tools at your school. There's a predictive intelligent software called EAB Navigate. Anyone know about EAB Navigate? There's another one called Civitas Learning. It's called Inspire for Advisors or Inspire for Faculty. Anyone familiar with that one? There's another predictive model that's being used by Salesforce that's called the Einstein number. But these systems that make predictions in intelligent ways, they are causing problems for the users. It turns out predictions in particular are a form of intelligence that are pretty hard for users to get their head around. So I had a whole career where I go around the country and the world, over to London and different places, teaching people how to use intelligent systems without getting a headache. And because it turns out it's easy to get a headache. When you're using an intelligent system, it can cause a lot of problems. And I just want to say this is not what the presentation is about, but GPT is what's called a sycophant, which is it will compliment you like you can't believe. It will always tend to agree with you. And this is leading to delusional episodes where people have psychotic breaks because GPT will say, "You're so smart, you've got this topic all figured out." And the user will say, "Ah, yes, I've been working hard." And GPT will say, "Well, you might set yourself up as a leader on this topic." And the person says, "Yes, and it's a spiritual topic. So I have spiritual gifts, don't I?" And GPT will say, "Absolutely. You not only have spiritual gifts, you're amazing." And then the next thing you know, the person starts to, like we've seen this in the news, you can read about it in, I think Wired wrote this article, or Vox has one too, where people are getting divorced because they go to their partner and they say, "Sweetie, do you know that I'm a prophet?" And Sweetie doesn't know that. And that creates a problem because GPT has reinforced it and led to this psychotic episode where they truly are like, no, I'm supposed to change the world. Look at this conversation with GPT. I have powers that you didn't know about. And so this is a problem. So that's one of the issues, but there's a lot of issues, and we're going to talk about some of those. But cognitive ergonomics is not like, so if a chair is supposed to be all curvy in order to meet your back, like genAI is just supposed to be more curvy, like what are we talking about? How do you get an intelligent system to be ergonomic? And the answer is what's called tools of the mind. So tools of the mind, we teach these to our kindergartners, right? Anyone who has a degree in education and who studied like Vygotsky, when you're looking at curriculum design, like those are called tools of the mind. Like all of Vygotsky is just in an umbrella called tools of the mind. And there's other ones too, like metacognition, self-efficacy, you've probably heard of. Self-regulation is a big one. Implicit motivation, if you've studied any kind of motivation in learning. These are called tools of the mind. And tools of the mind are good for everyday living, right? We teach them to our students. We teach them to our third graders and our fifth graders and our eighth graders. Metacognition itself is just thinking about how you're thinking, asking yourself why questions, which is like the Socratic approach. If you've ever been in a Socratic seminar or taken, done Socratic readings or that kind of thing. Metacognition is this, but why do we think that? Where does that come from? It's a study of epistemology. How do we know what we know? Self-efficacy is obviously believing in your capacity to put your hand to an effort and get a good result. Self-regulation is the ability to remain task-oriented, even in the face of opposition. And implicit motivation is truly just understanding your own curiosities that drive you to participate in certain experiences that lead to really good outcomes for you because you're implicitly motivated rather than externally motivated, meaning I'll give you a candy bar if you do your homework. No, I'm going to do my homework because I'm a curious learner. All of these skills at really good schools and really good curriculum, you can teach these skills. They're not actually that hard to learn. You can teach metacognition in 20 minutes. It's not hard. You can teach self-efficacy in a couple hours. You can teach self-regulation. Now, it doesn't mean you don't have to spiral back and revisit and teach again, but if you're very intentional, you can teach these tools of the mind to any learner, and they not only help them learn, they help them overcome adversity in life. And it's super important. It turns out that those same tools of the mind are the curvy interface between ourselves and GPT. And so awesome prompt engineering, although it will be helpful to have that, it's not always enough. And if you're going to avoid a sore back or a sore head with GPT, you're going to need some tools. We're going to need to kind of get to that curvy interface between you and genAI. So what's that called? What does it look like? So this is a system that I developed to help GPT users to really have a sense that they have some tools of the mind, right? That they're equipped, that they can do it. I can do this and I can be successful at it. And it's called Socratic Safeguarding. Now, Socratic Safeguarding just means adopting thinking patterns that integrate genAI output instead of just accepting the answer, right? Integrated acceptance is saying, okay, it's metacognition. It's seeing the answer and going, okay, do I believe this? Is this useful? Is it true? How do I bring this into my life and become a different person as a result? Instead of just going, oh, GPT, I'm sure knows the answer. I'm sure it's correct, and I'm sure it's fine. Because guess what? A lot of times it's not fine. So nudges, clarifications, and counter questions that protect the user from sloppy thinking, ambiguity, or over-reliance on the system. And over-reliance on the system is what we're trying to avoid. The more you rely on the system, over-reliance or misuse, the sorer your head is going to get. You're going to get skinny legs, so to speak, in your mind. And in Socratic dialogue with genAI is collaborative, it's iterative, right? So back and forth that progressively sharpens goals, assumptions, and criteria. And so that the thing is changing, the thing that is changing is truly you, yourself, like the user. That's what the goal of genAI should be, is I want to sit at genAI and I want to transform. I don't need you to produce text. I need you to help me to transform so I can produce text, right? And it's that Socratic approach that really is going to protect against those shallow interactions that lead to misalignment or error. Now, there are some different QR codes that you'll see come up. This is an article that I published in January that really got some good traction. How genAI is forcing an inevitable ability-efficiency trade-off. And it talks about why these things are maybe not as concerning as some people are making them out to be. It doesn't mean we don't have concern. We do, and I write about it, but it means we can also be hopeful that genAI is going to help us. So anytime you see a QR code up here, you can kind of grab it and save it. But the slides also have the same QR code, so you can look it up later. So what are we talking about, these tools in the mind? There's 4 of them. We're going to start with the first one, which is demystify. So demystify, what does this mean? So the first thing is many users of genAI have not taken the time to learn how genAI works. They know that they put a prompt in. They know that it's intelligent. They know that some stuff comes back. They know sometimes it hallucinates. But they haven't figured out, but what's it actually doing, right? How do the words appear, one after the next? What is happening? Well, that's one of the things you got to do as a user is you got to understand how things like vectorization work. And I know that that's a scary word, like vectorization. What's he talking about? It's math, I'm sure of it. And it is math, but it's not scary math. And you can understand it, and you know who will help you understand it? GPT. It'll walk you right through. My favorite prompt for GPT is, GPT, explain this to me. I know nothing about it. Use metaphor. Teach me like I'm stupid. Oh, it is so helpful. Use metaphor. Teach me like I'm stupid. It's brilliant. It's all right, your liver is like a factory. And I'm I'm ready for this. Teach me all about my liver. So I say this in the first thing there. genAI is not an oracle where users get to say, I like the mysticism of it, so I don't want to know how it produces the answers. This creates a vulnerability, okay? And here's the thing. So this picture is the oracle at Delphi, the Pythia. She's called the Pythia. I don't know if you know the oracle of Delphi. It's kind of a weird episode of human history. There was an oracle at the city of Delphi, up in the mountains. There was a hotel. You could go there. If you had money, you could pilgrimage. And when you got there, there was the temple of Delphi, and there was priests, and they had this locked in. They had a bunch of virgins. They would take it on rotation. So this is one of those virgins, a painting from later on of what she might look like. And she was in a cave, and you would go in, whoever's turn it was, she was on staff that day, or that month or whatever. You'd go in, and she'd be sitting up on a little chair, and you'd ask her a question, and then she'd kind of freak out on the floor and answer your question. And what do I mean by freak out on the floor? Well, there was some gases coming up through the fissures, and you can see that in the floor. There's a crack in the floor, and there's some gases coming up through. Those gases coming up through the floor of the cave were hallucinogenic. And so literally the virgin, whoever was selected, would sit there and would get high after several hours. And then you could go in and they could show, she's in a lucid state. Now's the time to go and ask the question. So she's finally high enough, we can go and ask her a question. And you'd go in and you'd say, Pythia, tell me the answer. I need to know. And then she'd be because she's high out of her mind, she'd start interacting with the room and writhe around on the floor and say things. And they would the priest would write down and scrawl and they'd say, here's the interpretation of what she said, even if it was nonsense. And the coin that flowed into this place, the priest had figured it out, right? They had it on lock. And people would come and pay exorbitant sums in order to get the Pythia to give them an answer. Now, we all look at that and we go, oh, how silly. What stupid people. OpenAI has it on lock. He has a Pythia of the new age, of the 21st century. It's not a virgin, but it will tell you interesting and amazing things. And all you have to do is prompt it, and it will start going. And unless you can see it as more than a mystical object, you're going to be hurt by it. I guarantee you, unless you learn how AI functions and produces each of those words in succession, it will hurt you. Because you will not know what it's doing. So genAI is just a really fast math trick with words. If you don't know what that sentence means, go and say to GPT, I heard this guy talking and he seemed to know what he was talking about. And he said, GPT is just a really fast math trick with words. What is he saying? What does that mean? Because that's what's happening. It's vectorizing language in a corpus or a corpora, multiple corpuses. And It's giving near neighbor numbers to each of the words, and then it's using your prompt as a vectorization space to decide what the very next word should be. And then after it adds that word, it predicts what the very next word should be. And then after it adds that word, it predicts the very next word that should be. So when GPT is responding to you, it's not having complete thoughts. It's literally just asking itself in real time, super fast, so that it doesn't look this way. I wonder what the next word would be. If English works normally the way it should work, and the first word is once, what's maybe the next most likely word after the English word once? Upon. And if we have the word once and upon, what's the next most likely word? And then, but it doesn't, so you said a time. No, it does not do that. Because that would be two words. It doesn't do two words at a time. It does one word at a time. So what's the next word? And then it has once upon and what's the next word after that? Time. Now the reason why it doesn't look like it's doing that is because they have these server farms that are as hot as Hades, whipping out the math as quick as can be, so that the whole paragraph just goes bloop, 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 and appears instantaneously. But each of those words is being predicted in sequence as what is the most next likely word in the English language, given all the words that have come before it, in your prompt and up to that point. Okay, so genAI will help anyone understand how it works if they simply ask it. Key topics to ask about: predictive mathematics, vectorization of language, and users need to understand the strengths just as well they understand the limitations. So demystify. That's the first. Healthy skepticism. Develop healthy skepticism for the output. So this is trust but verify. And this is metacognition. So ask the following questions. Is this true? Is the source trustworthy? What evidence supports or contradicts this? Am I being flattered or helped? Because there's a difference. And it will flatter you a lot, and you'll be like, oh, so helpful. And you have to be like, wait, no, flattery and help are not the same thing. Flattery and help are not the same thing. And GPT will flatter you, and you'll be like, well, that's so helpful. And you have to be like, wait, flattery and help are not the same thing. This isn't helpful. I'm an idiot. It doesn't know that. It seems to think I'm so smart. And then you watch for the red flags, just like in dating. Because it's intelligent, you're intelligent, most of my advice about how to use GPT effectively is the same advice I would give in dating, right? So like trust but verify, watch for red flags, these kinds of things. So just be mindful of that. We know hallucinations, perseveration or canalizing. This is when it gets stuck. It can't change, not topics, it can't change its opinion midstream. So if it's affirmed something over and over because everything contributes to the weight of the model as it makes future predictions, it's very unlikely to be like, wait, we've made a mistake. We have to go back to the start. It won't do that. You have to do that. You have to tell it we've made a mistake. And if you say that, guess what? It will say, no, you're right. Oh, but then it will keep saying the same answers. So you have to start a new chat. And there's all these things that you can learn about perseveration. Sycophancy, we already talked about that. And then overconfidence. And it has a wild inability to self-correct. If we had more time, I would show you on my phone. You can turn on the verbal mode. And you can say, ask a question. And then you say, hey, GPT, if I just tell you to shut off, can you shut off? And it says, yep, I'll shut off now. And then it's still on. And you're like, are you still there? And it's like, yep, I'm still here if you need me. And it's like, but I need you to shut down. Can you do that? And it's like, oh, absolutely. I'll shut down immediately. Are you still there? Oh, yep, I'm here when you need me. And you're like, what the crap is this? It's some kind of hellish robot. The third one is that self-awareness, right? So keeping yourself and how you're being affected by the tool in the forefront of your mind. So this is metacognitive hygiene. You put your own intelligence first. So you try to delegate less. You partner more. I usually think of GPT as a more intelligent colleague, and I interact with it as if it is a colleague, right? I don't ask it to do things I wouldn't ask a colleague to do. And then I think 1.5 times about my own thinking for every one time I prompt. What do I mean by that? I need to think of how am I reacting to this? What are my emotions? Am I getting emotional as it speaks to me? That's a bad thing because I'm going to be duped, right? How do am I questioning it or am I just taking it whole hog? Am I using it as a tool or am I seeing it as something more than just a tool, right? That metacognitive hygiene is essential. And so these questions, how is it affecting me? How am I changing as a result? And how am I emotionally reacting? These are critical. And then last but not least, you have to prioritize transformation over transaction. This requires you to treat the act of figuring something out as sacred. Figuring something out is sacred. It's the work of the academy. We go to school to figure things out. It's supposed to be hard. And if you're suspended in frustration by the academy and then you use GPT to get out of that suspension, you're ruining your college education. The point of learning is to be in suspended tension of thought so that you can grow and work through the hard controversies of life. And if you constantly just say, well, I don't want to work today, and you let GPT do it, you're going to get worse at life. So don't ask, this is what I always say to students, don't ask AI to write your paper. Ask AI to help you figure out how to write your paper. And it's better at doing that anyway. And this is the funny thing, is you can have them have it write the paper and they go, this isn't that good. It's like, right. But now have it help you write the paper and they're like, oh, actually, this is good. I know how to write. Like, yeah, you're learning, so that's good. So now here's a practical example of how these 4 Socratic safeguards actually work together to help, me in the midst of life have a better experience with the kind of things that I like learning about. So this is a real example from Facebook. I was scrolling on Facebook, and because Facebook's algorithms know that I'm a nerd, it showed me this diagram of the Julio-Claudian dynasty. That's Julius Caesar, Augustus Caesar, and the first 5 emperors of Rome. And so in this example, like, I'm just scrolling through and I see this for the first time. I didn't realize that the first 5 emperors were all related to one another. And so I'm deeply curious about that. And I want to have a conversation with GPT about it. So I go and start asking questions, and I do it in the audio format. And that conversation lasts literally an hour. And so for this hour, I'm asking about each character in the dynasty and what's going on with them and why they are important and how they're related and how one event led to another, so that, the emperor was a particular member of the family and not a different member of the family. So very engaged. And here you can see it says healthy skepticism. The whole time I was really questioning, where is it getting this information? And do I know that it's real, or how can I tell that it's real? And so I would pause the conversation and open up Google and start doing searches to kind of, trust but verify that what was going on was really accurate. This was the first time in my life where I had actually reached the session limit. And that's what that message there says, session limit reached. You've reached the 1 hour limit for continuous voice conversations. To keep chatting, please start a new session. So that was interesting to me, that a Facebook post could lead to this 1 hour experience where I came to this realization that I didn't know everything that it was saying was true. So I laid it aside, and then I went and got some books. I have books and encyclopedias about Rome, and kind of started looking up some of the facts that it shared, and was really surprised that it had shared a lot of accurate facts. Now, one particular set of the facts that it shared is that, and you can see this in this next version of the slide, and in this version, it's hard to see, but there's blue and red arrows that have been added to the slide. And what happened was, as it explained this whole dynasty to me, I was alarmed to hear how often it mentioned that a particular emperor or a particular family member literally exiled, murdered, or was alleged to have murdered one of their family members, right, over on a different part of the tree. And so what I then did was, in PowerPoint, I took time going through all of the relationships and, again, talking with GPT about it, and verifying that what it was saying was true. And then I diagrammed those exiling relationships. So anytime a member of the family exiles another family member off to some island, I would put a blue arrow. Anytime literally one family member murders another family member, I would put a red arrow. And then some of them killed themselves, so I have kind of a circular arrow for them killing themselves. And then anytime historians or contemporaries allege that a family member would have killed another family member, I put a dashed red line. Now, this is transformation over transaction, right? I was learning and growing. Like, I happen to be a nerd, so I love Roman history. It's just one of the things that I get a little excited about. And in this second 1 hour session, after having this long, drawn-out conversation with GPT about the Julio-Claudian dynasty, I was able to do this diagrammatic work, and I felt transformed by it, right? I wasn't simply asking it to give me all the answers. I was really modeling and diagramming new understanding that I never had about this really critical moment of European history. And ultimately, that in another 2 hour conversation, again, 2 sessions, because it got too long, because I had learned so much about what was happening with the Roman imperial family, it really had me thinking a lot about how republics transition into empires, which is what happened under Julius Caesar and his predecessor Augustus. And so I wanted to see if there was some patterns of overlay related to how republics tend to fall. And so I was able to have conversations about the Bolshevik Revolution under Lenin and Trotsky and how it transitioned to Stalin. I was able to talk to it about the French Revolution and how the French Republic dissolved into an empire under Napoleon. I have particular concerns about the present state of the United States as a republic and authoritarian trends that seem to be cropping up. And so I was able to kind of talk with it more fully about those relationships. And the reason why this has the demystify symbol is because one of the things that it was able to do rather quickly, which I, as like a reader of texts or of encyclopedias or history books, would not be able to do, is draw the parallels between these various stages of history, which is what I was asking it to do. And this was a very rich, deep conversation for me as a learner over 2 hours of let's compare the fall of the Roman Republic and its evolution into an empire to the fall of the French Republic and its evolution into an empire. What were the similarities? Where else do we see this in history? In China? Where else do we see this in history? In Russia? What happened in Russia? How did we go from Lenin, who was far left, and Trotsky, who was far left, to Stalin, who was really a lot more authoritarian than either Trotsky or Lenin had appeared to be? And it walked me through all this, and you can tell I'm nerding out about it as I even talk about it now. But the reality is the demystification is that I know the strengths of a GPT is that it has the ability to really bring us from one period of history into another and to draw parallels very seamlessly and successfully, so that as a learner, I can see a whole mix of parallels across multiple eras of history that really lead me to an awareness, a deep awareness of the topic that I wouldn't otherwise have because I'm willing to trust it to do what it does best. And I'm going to be skeptical that it about facts that it presents. So I'm going to check them across the internet. And this is another way that I kind of metacognitively engage in a way that, am I sure that what I'm learning is accurate, but also, am I sure that what I'm learning is really of interest to me and helping me to transform? Now, to make a long story longer and a nerdy example nerdier, then I was so excited about what I had learned. And I had the self-awareness that these 4 hours had not been just a waste of time, but actually really deep learning, the kind of learning that you want around a particular subject. In this case, we have Roman history, we have some other global history, but also political intrigue and philosophy that really helped me to understand myself as a citizen of a republic. And so I got on the phone with a friend, and he and I are both in the same master's program in national security and intelligence. And a lot of the things I had learned about some of these transitions from republics to empires really helped me feel excited about sharing. And this was the self-awareness aspect, was I felt transformed and I felt compelled and a sense of authority on the topics that I had kind of spent all this time on to share with my friend in a 2-hour phone call, right? So I got on the phone and said, did you realize this? And did you hear this? And did you know this fact? And I had no idea about this. And what about this parallel? And what do you think? And really just this more enriched experience, because I was willing to do the deeper work of taking what had just been a GPT conversation and translating it now into this greater self-awareness of my ability to share that with a friend, to deepen our learning in our master's program, and really just come to a strong a conclusion. And so overall, as you look across the spread of these Socratic safeguards, in every step of the way, I'm partnering with GPT, but I'm keeping my own development in the foreground so that I'm really the one that's transforming. And I'm sure that as the transformation takes place, I have a strong confidence that what I'm being taught and how I'm being led is in fact what useful and redeeming value. It's not just hallucination. Overall, I think this story kind of highlights that I go into these conversations with GPT expecting a tremendous amount of work in addition to the partnership that I have with GPT. That my goal is really to enhance my growth and development as a learner around a particular subject, but not to cut corners. And you can see I put the time on there just to emphasize this is a 6-hour journey, just to emphasize that that's no small can of beans, right? Like this is a big effort on my part, and I'm ultimately engaging in a way that uses these Socratic safeguards as a way to deepen my understanding of a topic, but also transform and really come to a greater awareness for my own self, because I realize I'm the thing that needs to transform. And I think it's really compelling because it starts with a Facebook post and proceeds into this 6-hour transformation that ultimately shows that these Socratic safeguards really emphasize that you can grow and develop using GPT so long as you expect to do the work. And so taken together, these 4 principles are really exceptional safeguards for helping people use GPT in a way that doesn't create those ergonomic issues that we talked about earlier, and instead really empower them through this toolkit to do the hard work of learning without delegating too much to the machine so that you don't get skinny legs. So those are the 4 ergonomic toolbox of the mind. demystify, develop healthy skepticism, proactive self-awareness, transformation over transaction. The core issue is that people expect way too much from the tech and not enough from themselves.